What's up everyone? We're planning to have a separate build video created for every DIY PC. We're currently in the process of filming all of those, but wanted to get the DIY tab live for you ASAP. So we started by just making one build video for Intel and one for AMD. This is the build video for AMD. If you buy any AMD build from our website, this DIY video will show you how to build it. And again, if you get stuck or have any questions, you can always give us a call.
Hey, how's it going everyone? Today we're going to be building a Lyte build kit. This is the Gamma PC. The Lyte Gamma build kit comes with a Ryzen 7 2700 CPU. I'm here from Future in the video. I totally forgot to mention the motherboard we're going to be using. It's going to be a B450M. This is Ryzen 3 desktop ready. That's going to be in the build. For some reason I forgot that in the parts list in the beginning. A Dark Flash RGB tower cooler. This is an air cooler. The RAM to go with it is going to be a 16 gig kit of RGB DDR4, a 1 terabyte WD black hard drive. The GPU is going to be this really sick Zotac Push the Limits edition 1080 that we got, and then we're going to be throwing all of it into the IDX1 WARGB case from DIY PC. Without further ado, let's unbox the case and get to the build video. First order of business, we're going to go ahead and open up our case box. Now, to get this case out of the box easily, take out this little window foam that comes in the box. Also, by the way, save all your packaging for everything until the end. Just in case you ever need to send something back to either us or for a part RMA, keep all of your packaging together. So basically put your finger into the little handle holes and pull them out so it doesn't get stuck on the case styrofoam. There we go. Now we're gonna pick the case up with the one hand, hold the actual case from coming out of the box, and then flip it upside down. And now the box should just slide out. I always take the foot foam side off and the plastic, so then I can set it down onto the feet. That foam and that plastic. Untwist these thumb screws. Slide this glass off carefully. I usually put it into the box with the styrofoam and stuff just so it doesn't tip over and break. And then the same for the back panel. I'm gonna undo this twist tie, and then we can grab our accessory bag. So this bag has everything you will need for screws and stuff like that for the motherboard, and this also has some zip ties in it. So I'm gonna put an actual diagram on the screen for the different kinds of screws you'll be using, because one has more of a flat rim around it, and that's for the motherboard. Then there's more of a heavy duty screw, and that's meant for the graphics card and the power supply. And then the other one is meant for more hard drives. So I just wanted to explain that. So last thing to do before we move on to other things is put our I/O shield in. This is in your motherboard box. It's this silver guy. I'll throw up an example of a finished product, but the long story short of it is these three circles are meant for audio ports, and it's always on the bottom of your motherboard I/O, so it'll be down here. So it basically will sit in the case like that, and the more flat side goes on the inside of the case. The way I do it is I basically put one corner down, so in this case I'm like wedging the bottom right corner here, and then I'm gonna push in the opposite side. Okay, so that's snapped into place. Now we just gotta get the top. So still hold the bottom one, pop in that one, pop in that one, make sure the bottom right one that we started with was in, and your I/O shield is installed. All right, now let's get our motherboard out of the box. Just be kind of gentle with it, obviously. This particular one has foam on the bottom, like, you know, an easy spot to grab. But if you ever need to lift it in the future, you can just grab like the I/O stuff over here. You can grab like some plastic bits. Just, you know, be gentle with it. Keep these SATA cables to the side. And then also save this little screw in the box in case you ever want to install an M.2 SSD onto your motherboard. Put our foam down, and then we're going to place our motherboard down. We're going to use this little box as a support to install the CPU and cooler and all that, because it's just much easier to do before you put the whole thing into the case. To start, we got to unscrew these little plastic bracket pieces. Also, keep these aside, probably in the motherboard box later down the line once you're, you know, done using all this. Because you'll need to put these back on if you ever need to RMA the motherboard, like if it just decides to fry or you get like a dead on arrival board. Okay, to install our Ryzen CPU, we're gonna take it out of the packaging. And the way the CPU sits is kind of like this. So the bottom left of the CPU has that gold triangle, so that's just showing you that that's the bottom left. And this is the top of the socket, so if you imagine it just sits like this on the socket. Also, for reference, I have the board spinned around a little bit so it's easier for you guys to see. This way is actually the bottom of the board. So move this latch to the side. It just goes over and up. Make sure it's all the way back. Then we're gonna place our CPU down. So just lower it down and then take that arm from earlier and now push that down and just make sure the latch is all the way seated into this little clip thing. Now for our RAM, we're gonna take it out of the packaging. So RAM only goes in one way. If you see that little indent in the center, it's a little bit off center to one side, and that corresponds with the RAM slot. So basically just hold it above and match it up that the line will fit into place once you slide it down. Pop these two tabs back. We're gonna pop these two tabs back, line up our little indent, dig down, and then with both fingers, we're gonna push down firmly but gently. And when you hear it snap into place, then you know it's good. Do that for the other stick. So I took our cooler out of the box, our Dark Flash Tower cooler, and then you get a bag of hardware and stuff. So what we'll need out of the hardware bag is the thermal paste. We're gonna need these 4 screws, and then we need the long AMD brackets. So there's these like shorter ones that are more like more fit to like a curved design, and these ones are longer. You want the longer ones. Since our motherboard already has these standoffs built in, we don't need to screw around with any sort of mounting hardware like that. So you're gonna take your cooler, and we're gonna flip it upside down. By the way, if possible at all, the whole build process will go much easier if you have a magnetic tip screwdriver. Okay, so for the skinny brackets that we need to use, you're gonna basically place the bracket on top and then put a screw through it. Make sure the bracket has the screw side facing upright like this. I'm using my other hand to just make sure that the other hole lines up. Now do the identical thing to the other side. Now that we can screw our cooler down, we're going to remove this sticker on the bottom to reveal the actual surface that'll go onto the CPU. Now we're going to take our thermal paste we had from the box, and we're going to put about a size of a pea, or like a little bit smaller than a piece of corn. It's about that size is good. So see how you can move these screws? You need to move it so that there's the 2 inner gaps facing each other on both sides. Now it'll align with our socket. Put 1 screw in, and then you can follow up with that screw, and then just kind of line it all up. The pattern we're going to be screwing in the cooler is essentially opposite corners. So we'll maybe start with the top left, then go bottom right, then bottom left, then top right. You alternate it down so that the thermal paste squishes down evenly. Just screw in all 4 of those. Now the technique I usually do is I screw each one onto the standoff just to make sure it has a little bit of thread on there before screwing it down completely. So we got the top left and bottom right ones threaded onto the bracket. Now we got bottom left and then top right. Now let's screw top left down all the way. Now your cooler's on there nice and stable. We can install our fan for the CPU. These go on kind of simple. So the opposite side of the RAM is where you want the air to be blowing through. The back of this fan is where the air is coming from. So the side that has the plastic little back piece is the side the air is coming from. So you want it to be like this when it's sitting on your cooler. The main thing you just need to pay attention to on this is that the cord comes out of one side of the corner. Place it with the least amount of travel to the CPU header at the top of the motherboard over that direction. I started the opposite side just so I can show you guys, because it's a little bit hard to start while showing you what I'm doing. So you put it on these 2 inner screw holes, and then you basically just latch it onto the cooler itself, like the actual metal bracket piece. Now this is your CPU fan header, so you're going to take this cord. It goes on one way. There's that little indent in the plug, and there's like a little plastic bit that slides onto that. So this is inside the case now. We're going to be putting our motherboard down into the case at this moment. First thing, just make sure that this is out of the way. You might need to like untangle it and move it through this top cable management hole. So these are what we unplugged to reroute the cable. So just sliding that back on. With our B450, we're gonna have to move some motherboard mounts. Thankfully, this case comes with a little adapter for your screwdriver. If your case doesn't and you need to move these, you can use pliers. You can pretty much get them off with your hands also, but this little screwdriver attachment makes it so much easier. So for ours, we're gonna have to move these lower ones up a few spaces. Okay, there's one. And then we're gonna be moving it up to these 2 parallel spots. Okay, so now we got the 2 in the top and then the parallel 4 in the bottom. So we can put our motherboard into the case right now. Okay, so I put 1 screw in just so it'll stay upright. You're gonna put the 2 screws in the bottom, 2 in the middle, and then 2 in the top. So we're gonna do that right now just to make sure our motherboard is secured down to the case. So now that the motherboard is installed, we can go ahead and plug in our front panel stuff. So that'll get that out of the way. For the USB 3.0, it has a little ridge on the top and it corresponds with the little indent on the plug itself. Just make sure it's down all the way. Tuck that cord back in a little bit, but just careful not to break the plug. And then for this front panel, I routed all the stuff through 1 cable management hole over there to zip tie it later and make it look nice. But it goes as follows. The HD audio goes over to the left. The USB 2.0 and the HD audio both have a pin missing on their connector, and so does the headers. So actually USB 2 goes over here. So you just line it up with the plug that has the pin missing. So this one says USB 2, slide that connector on there. And then for the front panel down here, these are the like 4 plugs. You're gonna take these guys and put them onto the motherboard according to the diagram. So there's a diagram on here showing you which 2 pins correspond with each plug. The quick summed up version is the bottom 2 go. On this particular case, we don't have a reset switch because that's bound to the LEDs in the front. So we just put a hard drive LED in the bottom left 2. The top right 2 next to the pin missing is power switch, and then to the left of power switch are power LED plus and minus. So plus goes on the left, minus goes on the right. But again, you can refer to the motherboard's diagram on if you get stuck. Pretty straightforward, and it's much easier to do without a GPU in the case. So now we got our USB 3, USB 2, front panel, and HD audio all plugged in. For our drives, we're going to be putting them on this hard drive bay, which you actually have to flip your case upside down and take the thumb screws out. So I'm going to go ahead and get this drive bay out right now. This guy actually has some rubber feet on it, so you just slide it out of the little points. So you basically just push it forward and up and out. We're going to take our hard drive. The words HDD and SSD is the front that'll sit towards you. And you want that to have the SATA cable connectors also facing towards you. And then you're gonna slide it into the drive bay until these screw holes line up. Now we're gonna use some of the heavy duty hard drive screws that I showed earlier to secure it to the drive sled. Now before we can install our hard drive, we have to install the SSD on top of this. So again, the words HDD and SSD go towards the front, and so you want the SATA connectors facing towards the front. So we're going to place it face down like this and screw it from the underside with motherboard screws. So it should look like this in the end, where the SATA ports are facing the front and it's all secure down onto the bay. Now we can slide our hard drive into here, upside down, with the SATA ports facing forward, like I said. For the SSD, same thing. You'll see that the screw holes line up at some point. So right about there, we're gonna take our heavy duty screws and secure the hard drive to the bay. This one will take 6 screws. And then we're gonna line it up with these little rubber screw guys in here. Okay, so it's down, and then we're gonna push it back to make sure it's seated in there. And now you guys got your drives installed. At this point, I usually install my SATA cables. You can always do it later, but I'm just gonna plug our right angle into our SATA port, so I plugged our right angle into our SSD, and then I'm gonna take this flat one and plug it into the hard drive. Now both of these cables are gonna get routed through this bottom cable management hole. You're gonna plug the one that goes to your SSD into SATA 1. So it's like an L-shaped connector, just like you plugged in. And then SATA 2 will be to our hard drive. Before we install our GPU, because it's a beefy one, we're going to take a zip tie and we're gonna group all these these front panel cables all together and zip tie them, just to make sure that they're kind of pushed out of the way a little bit. Use your scissors to cut off the extra. We're gonna unbox our GPU. So this card is pretty huge, honestly. So we're just gonna try to see how it's gonna line up. So we need to take these 2 slots off so that we can put our card in. So now we got our slots off. We can line up our card with the 16X slot. Make sure this piece is back. We're gonna go in just very carefully, making sure we're not bending anything else. like any plugs. And then once you're lined up with the slot on the motherboard and these slots, you just want to push in firmly but gently until you hear the click. Now that it's in, you just got to screw it down into that bracket. Okay, now your GPU is fully secure. The final step of the process is to get the power supply in. Open up our box, take our power cable out, get our power supply out. So this is where your power supply sits. It actually sits face down. So if you see this fan, this pulls through it and then out of it. You're gonna wanna put the fan facing down on this dust cover. The same style of screw like our GPU had is gonna be the one that helps us secure down these power supplies. So with my right hand, I'm gonna hold it in place to make sure the screw holes line up well. And we're gonna start one corner of it. I'm gonna not screw it down fully tight yet, just in case it needs to shift a little bit. And then put the other screws in. Now with the power supply installed, we're gonna go ahead and wire up our system. So undo this little twisty tie, and then you get all these cables. So this 24 pin, so it's a 20 pin plus 4, so you're gonna have to like put the cord onto itself, like, you know, you kind of attach the other extension, and then this is gonna click into your motherboard on the 24 pin. So we're gonna route this guy through this middle hole right here, so middle cable management hole. These cables are for your graphics card, the ones that are labeled PCIe. We're gonna route this through the same cable management hole as the motherboard actually. And last but not least, we're gonna route our CPU power. So it looks exactly like the PCIe connector, except it kind of merges in the middle where this clip is, and it's not labeled. So this is gonna go to the top right of your case. And then while we're back here, I'm gonna plug in our hard drives. So take this connector with all the SATA L power connectors, and we're gonna just plug that into our hard drive. And then on the same cord, there's like the other extensions. We're gonna take another one and plug it into the SSD above it. This case's fan controller is also powered by SATA. So we're gonna use the third and final piece on that whole SATA row cable there. And we're gonna power our LEDs and fans with this SATA connector. Take the extra bundle and put it tucked in by the power supply. Since there's a power supply shroud, we can hide some cables down here and you won't see it from the front. Looks like here's some an extra CPU type power cable. I'm gonna put that down there as well. And just kind of tuck this whole John into there. Now let's go to the front of the case and plug them all in. So this is the main power for your motherboard. We're gonna connect that little connector, and don't be afraid to muscle these cables around. So literally all there is to it is lining it up, and you want the clip to click down onto the ridge piece on the connector itself, the actual header on the motherboard. Once you hear it click, you know it's in. Now over to our PCIe, so we're gonna power our graphics card now. First off, we're gonna do the left side here, since it's a longer piece of the puzzle. Plug in that left connector, and then plug in the right side. So just to clean this little part up, I'm gonna fold these cables together and zip tie them just to make them look a little more tidy. So now that's a nice little bundle coming from the middle. While we're here, I'm gonna take all three of these bigger cables and zip tie them together. So there's no real need to do this, it just really for preference. So we got that zip tie around there, just tighten her up. And then now it kind of looks more of like, you know, more intentional and cleaner. We're going to plug in our CPU power. This board only takes one 4-pin as the connector, so I'm taking the cable and splitting it if you just pull them apart. Then we're gonna push that back through there. And an actual cheat sheet is up on this. If you take the dust filter off, you can look through the top down into there to line up the CPU power cable a little bit better. While we're here and already being a little bit tidy, I'm gonna just add a zip tie. Actually, your PC is ready to turn on and use as is, but I'm just gonna show you a little bit more to do on cable management. So there's these little ridge pieces that will hold a zip tie through. So the aim of the game with cable management is you really only need the case to close. That's really the only aim of the game. All the zip ties are just optional. It's just pretty good to, you know, kind of clean them up. And so basically I'm just trying to make it as flat as possible and just get it a little bit more neat back here. So you can spend as long as you want on this, adding, you know, 45 zip ties if you wanted it to look like a wiring harness back here. You can go as crazy as you want for the time you want to spend. I'm just showing you some typical areas that I like to zip tie things down to. I think I'm gonna go around this screw thing here. This isn't really a very conventional spot for a zip tie, but it's gonna work. It's just kind of around this little screw head, just to keep this a little bit more flat and flush to the case. If you can route this as crazy as you want to make it as clean as you want, this should close. So the best way I found to get your back panel on is to lay your PC completely flat, and then you place the back panel over it. You're basically gonna push down with your hands on both sides and then forward. So now it's in place, and there you go. That's easy as pie. It's just much harder to try and do that while it's standing up, and you know, even if you have some cords popping out, but this case is pretty good with actual space for cable management and getting it closed. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop our glass panel on, do a satisfying peel, and then I'm gonna show you guys how to get Windows, drivers, and games installed. So let's get to it. All right, ladies and germs, we're gonna go ahead and do our satisfying peel now that our system is fully built. And then we're gonna take our included USB Windows drive. We're going to plug it into one of the top USB 3.0 ports. It doesn't really matter which USB port you want to choose, but the 3.0 ones will go a little bit quicker, and we conveniently have some on top of the case. So this is our first screen of installing Windows. We're gonna go ahead and hit next. Install now. I don't have a product key. We're gonna go ahead and go with Windows 10 Home. Just accept that screen. Custom install. This smaller drive obviously is our 500 gig SSD. So go ahead and click on the SSD, hit new. It automatically puts in the maximum amount you can. Hit apply, hit OK. Then it'll make these two other partitions for the system and just hit next. Once the screen finishes, just hit restart now and take out your USB drive. Hit yes, yes, skip. I left the Ethernet cable unplugged so we didn't have to sign in with an actual online Microsoft account. But if you wanted to do that, you can make an account and sign in, or unless you already have one for maybe Xbox or something like that, continue a limited setup. Okay, so we're gonna make the name admin. We're gonna not put in a password, so we can just hit enter. And then it's basically just enter until you get to the desktop now. So now that we're on the desktop, I went ahead and plugged in our Ethernet cable. First order of business is to go to disk management, and we're gonna go ahead and partition our hard drive. So this big unallocated is gonna be the hard drive. Hit next, 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 finish. So essentially you right click, do new simple volume, and then hit next until it's done. And then now your hard drive is partitioned. So if you click this file on the bottom and go to your file explorer, so you can see all the stuff here, hit this PC on the left, and you'll be able to see your hard drive showing up here. We still have the USB drive in, so that's why that's showing up. But go into the hard drive, because we're gonna do something with this later, and right click, new folder. We're gonna write games, close out of that. Since we just did a fresh install, it's always good to get all your Windows updates and drivers. So basically go to your search bar here. Alternatively, if you end up turning the search bar off, you can right click your Windows icon and then hit search. But we're gonna go to search updates and then check for updates. So it looks like it's already going. So this is gonna install all the drivers that you need, so anything up to date more so than the Windows image we installed. So this is gonna catch up. There's also this feature update you can install, but this will take a little bit. So while these install, I'm gonna show you guys how to install a graphics driver manually. The best way to do this is with GeForce Experience, but I'm gonna show you guys just the driver download. GTX 1080 graphics driver. Go ahead and it's just always going to be from nvidia.com. Don't click any of the goofier ones. We're going to hit download drivers. Since we Googled GTX 1080 driver, it literally leads us to the exact site with everything picked out. Otherwise, you just go through the top, hit GeForce, and then you just select your card and it'll give you this exact screen. But just Googling exactly what you want will get you right here. So you're gonna go ahead and hit download. This whole menu system that while we're installing is basically gonna be similar to what we've already done. You pretty much just hit next until anything finishes on PC. But I'll still walk you through this whole little section. Okay, so eventually you'll get to this screen, hit express. My PC just ended up restarting itself. So now with our graphics driver and our Windows updates installed, we're gonna go ahead and get our first game. So let's go to battle.net. That's Blizzard's launcher. And this is where Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Call of Duty Black Ops are, since they're partnered with Activision. We're gonna go ahead and hit Battle.net app, download for Windows. We're gonna go ahead and run that. We're gonna leave it as the default install location since we got a good amount of space on our SSD. So just hit continue. Right here, you'll have to create a Blizzard account if you don't already have one. I'm gonna go ahead and sign into mine. Now to install our first game, we're gonna go ahead and install Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So go ahead and hit install. So I'm gonna modify the game content since I don't want campaign or the Spec Ops aspect of this. It saves a whole lot of space on your drives. This one we're actually gonna leave on the SSD, but if you ever want to put something onto the hard drive, you would just do change folder, this PC, your hard drive, and then you would hit games and select folder. So that is how you would route it to the hard drive for that folder we made earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it on the SSD itself. So we're gonna hit Battle.net and just return it to the default install location, start install, and there's your first game. So once this boots up, I'm gonna go ahead and run some games between this, Rainbow Six Siege, and Fortnite. So I'll see you in a bit. All right, so on Modern Warfare, we have all high settings. We're just gonna be jumping into a magic gun game, show off a little bit of FPS, and that'll be it. I don't wanna play a night level actually, so we're gonna jump into a team deathmatch. Alrighty, so like I said, we're on a good bit of high settings. 1080p, no frame rate limit, as usual. We're going into Vacant right now on team deathmatch. Well, that's a big F. I get a Wilson stuck in the floor, of course, right when I'm on a good kill streak. Well, it looks like we got our VTOL anyway. That was all in one life. I just went on a 12 kill streak. All right, we're gonna go ahead and switch to Rainbow Six Siege now. So onto Rainbow Six Siege, this is the graphics preset of Ultra, and then I moved render scaling to 100% instead of 50%, which is the default. So we'll just let this run out, and then we'll go on to Fortnite. Just dropping down into Fortnite real quick. We're just gonna see how she runs. We're just in a solo. I hot dropped into a town, so we're gonna just try to get into some fights real quick. Well, we are on far view distance, medium textures, and medium anti-aliasing. So we're getting pretty good FPS, honestly. This is probably going to be the end of the video, so I hope you guys all enjoyed the whole build process. And if you ever get stuck and run into any issues, give us a call. You know, we have some technicians on hand to assist you with the rest of the way. So if you ever get stuck, give us a call. Hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.